Let me guess. You're sitting there, replaying conversations in your head, analyzing what you did wrong, wondering if you were too much or not enough, asking yourself how someone you loved, someone you trusted, could turn into a stranger who looked you in the eye and lied, who made promises they never intended to keep, who took the best parts of you and left you questioning whether those parts were ever worth anything at all. You're stuck in this loop, aren't you? Checking their social media to see if they're thinking about you, drafting texts you'll never send, imagining scenarios where they come back, apologize, finally see what they lost. You want closure. You want them to feel what you feel. You want them to understand the weight of what they've done. Here's the truth that's going to sting. They don't care. Not the way you need them to. Not the way you deserve. And you sitting here, waiting for them to hand you your self-worth back, is the biggest betrayal of all, because you're doing it to yourself. You know what you're doing right now? You're taking their crimes and trying them in a court where you're both the defendant and the prosecutor. You're building a case against yourself. Maybe I was too needy. Maybe I asked for too much. Maybe if I had been more understanding, more patient, more... Stop. Just stop. They cheated. They lied. They manipulated. They gaslit you into doubting your own reality. They promised you the world and delivered breadcrumbs. They made you feel crazy for having standards. They took your loyalty and treated it like a joke. They knew what they were doing, every single time. But somehow, you're the one lying awake at night, dissecting every conversation, every argument, every moment where things started to crack. You're the one wondering if your love was too intense, if your care was suffocating, if your expectations were unreasonable. Let me ask you something. When did loving someone fully become a character flaw? When did expecting basic respect and honesty become asking for too much? When did having boundaries become a crime you needed to apologize for? You're not the villain in this story. You never were. You were the one who showed up, who stayed when things got hard, who gave second chances that became third, fourth, fifth chances, who believed in someone's potential more than they believed in themselves, who loved someone at their worst and got punished for it. That's not a weakness. That's not naivety. That's not being too much. That's you having a capacity for love and loyalty that they couldn't match. That's you operating at a frequency they couldn't reach. That's you being a whole person trying to love a half person who was never going to meet you where you stood. You keep waiting for them to wake up, to realize what they had, to see you the way you saw them, to become the person you believed they could be. They won't. They don't. They can't. Because the version of them you fell in love with, that was a performance, a mask, a carefully constructed illusion designed to get what they wanted from you. And what they wanted wasn't a partnership. It wasn't love. It wasn't building something real. They wanted validation without effort, intimacy without vulnerability, loyalty without reciprocity. They wanted someone to make them feel special while they kept their options open. They wanted the comfort of your presence and the freedom to do whatever the hell they wanted. And when you started asking questions, when you noticed the inconsistencies, when you dared to suggest that love should be reciprocal and respect should be mutual, they made you the problem. Suddenly you were too sensitive, too insecure, too demanding. You were overthinking. You were creating drama. You were the reason things weren't working. They twisted your legitimate needs into character defects. They reframed their betrayal as your paranoia. They made you apologize for catching them in lies. They convinced you that your standards were the issue, not their inability to meet basic human decency. And the most insidious part? They probably still think they're a good person. They've rewritten history in their head where you were the difficult one, the unreasonable one, the one who just couldn't let things go. They've told their friends a version of events where they're the victim, where they tried so hard, where you were impossible to please. They're not losing sleep over what they did to you. They're not questioning themselves. They're not lying awake feeling guilty. They've moved on. Or they're repeating the exact same patterns with someone new who hasn't figured out their game yet. You know what they hated most about you? The thing they criticized, mocked, tried to dim? Your ability to feel deeply. Your capacity to see through surfaces. Your refusal to accept shallow when you were capable of profound. Your insistence on authenticity in a world that rewards performance. They called you too emotional because your emotions made them uncomfortable. Because they forced a confrontation with reality that they weren't equipped to handle. Because genuine feeling requires genuine response, and they were running on autopilot. They said you were overthinking because your mind works at a depth they couldn't access. Because you noticed patterns they wanted to keep hidden. Because you asked questions that required honest answers they weren't willing to give. They accused you of being too intense, because intensity demands intensity in return. Because showing up fully to a relationship requires effort they weren't willing to invest. Because matching your energy would have required them to stop being mediocre. Here's what they'll never tell you. They were intimidated, threatened, overwhelmed by the fact that you came to the table as a complete person with needs, boundaries, and expectations. They needed you to shrink so they could feel bigger. They needed you to doubt yourself so you'd stop asking them to step up. They needed you broken down and questioning your worth so you wouldn't realize they couldn't measure up to yours. Your sensitivity, your depth, your loyalty, your capacity to love without armor. None of that was too much. It was too much for them. And that says everything about their limits and nothing about your worth. You are not damaged goods because you loved someone who didn't deserve it. You are not broken because you believed in someone's potential. You are not weak because you gave chances. You are someone with an extraordinary capacity for love who made the mistake of directing it towards someone with an ordinary capacity to receive it. Every time you check their social media, you give them power. Every time you imagine conversations where they apologize, you give them power. Every time you wonder if they're thinking about you, you give them power. Every time you compare yourself to who they're with now, you give them power. Every time you try to make sense of why they did what they did, you give them power. You want to know what real power looks like? It's silence. Complete, unbreakable silence. It's them never knowing how you're doing, never getting to see your growth, never having access to your transformation, never being able to gauge whether you still care, still think about them, still exist in their orbit. It's you disappearing from their world so thoroughly that you become a ghost, a reminder of what they lost that they can never quite touch or understand or get back. It's you living your life at such a high frequency that they couldn't reach you even if they tried. Building a version of yourself that's so far beyond who you were when they knew you that if they saw you now, they wouldn't recognize you. Not because you've changed for them, but because you've evolved past the version of yourself that thought they were worth your time. Right now, you're giving them rent-free space in your head. They're not paying for it. They're not earning it. They're just there, occupying valuable real estate that you could be using to build something incredible. What if you evicted them? What if you took all that energy you're spending trying to understand them, make sense of them, get closure from them, and redirected it toward yourself? What if instead of asking, "Why did they do this to me?" you asked, "What am I going to build now that I'm free?" You keep thinking that if they would just explain, just acknowledge what they did, just apologize properly, then you could move on. That's a lie you're telling yourself to avoid the hard truth. You're the only one who can give yourself closure. Their apology won't fix what's broken inside you, because they're not the ones who broke it. You broke it by staying too long, by accepting too little, by betraying your own boundaries over and over again, because you were so desperate to make it work. Their explanation won't make sense because there is no explanation that will satisfy you. I didn't love you enough won't be enough. I was going through something won't be enough. I'm sorry won't be enough. Because the truth is simple and devastating. They chose to hurt you. They knew what they were doing. They did it anyway. And them admitting that doesn't erase the nights you cried yourself to sleep. That doesn't undo the damage to your ability to trust. That doesn't give you back the time you wasted. That doesn't restore the version of yourself that believed love was safe. You want closure? Close the door yourself. You want peace? Stop asking someone who gave you war to explain why they chose violence. You want to move on? Accept that some questions don't have answers that will make you feel better. Accept that some people are just broken in ways you can't fix. Accept that you deserved better and you didn't get it. And that's not fair, and that's not your fault, and dwelling on it won't change it. The closure you need isn't in their words, it's in your actions. It's in you choosing yourself for the first time in a long time. It's in you deciding that your peace is more important than their validation. It's in you understanding that the best revenge isn't proving anything to them. It's becoming so genuinely happy that they become irrelevant. You want them to hurt the way you hurt? You want them to feel what they put you through? You want them to regret losing you? Then stop trying to make them see it. Live it so loudly that it echoes. Become the version of yourself that makes them question every decision they ever made. Not because you're showing off, not because you're trying to prove something, but because you're genuinely thriving in a way you never could when you were weighed down by their mediocrity. The best revenge isn't a message. It's not a confrontation. It's not you getting the last word. It's not them seeing you with someone better. The best revenge is them seeing fragments of your life, a photo, a mutual friend's comment, a random encounter, and realizing that you're not just fine, you're better, you're happier, you're more successful. You're surrounded by people who actually value you. You're living the life they thought you couldn't live without them. And you're doing it all without thinking about them at all. That's the revenge that cuts the deepest. Not anger, not bitterness, not trying to hurt them back. Just complete, authentic indifference, born from genuine happiness. They expect you to be broken. They expect you to be bitter. They expect you to spend years trying to get over them while they move on unbothered. Flip the script. Let them be the one who can't let go. Let them be the one who wonders. Let them be the one who realizes too late that they had something real and they traded it for something temporary. But here's the key. You can't fake this. You can't perform healing for their benefit. You actually have to do the work. You actually have to choose yourself. You actually have to build a life so fulfilling that they become a footnote in your story instead of the main chapter. And that starts right now. Not when you feel ready, not when the pain stops. Now. You're waiting for something, some signal, some sign that it's okay to let go. Some moment where the pain magically stops and you're ready to move on. That moment isn't coming. There's no magical threshold where heartbreak ends and healing begins. There's no permission slip from the universe. There's no timeline that guarantees when you'll feel whole again. There's just you, making a choice every single day. You choose to get up. You choose to move your body. You choose to eat something. You choose to shower. You choose to put one foot in front of the other, even when your entire being is screaming to stay in bed and replay everything that went wrong. You choose to stop checking their social media. You choose to delete the photos. You choose to remove them from your life in every way that matters. You choose to stop explaining to people what happened because you're tired of making them the center of your story. You choose to redirect your energy. You choose to invest in yourself. You choose to pursue the goals you put on hold. You choose to reconnect with the parts of yourself that got lost in trying to be enough for someone who was never going to appreciate you. You choose yourself. Not because you feel like it, not because you're over it, but because the alternative is giving them power they haven't earned and don't deserve. Every day you wake up and choose to move forward, even incrementally, even messily, even with setbacks, that's a victory. That's you taking your life back. That's you refusing to let their actions define your trajectory. And some days, you're going to fail. Some days, you're going to check their page. You're going to cry. You're going to feel like you're back at square one. You're going to question whether you're doing this right. That's not failure. That's being human. But you get up the next day and you choose again. Because healing isn't linear. It's not a straight path from broken to whole. It's a messy, chaotic journey where you take 3 steps forward and 2 steps back. And sometimes you're moving sideways, and you're not sure if you're making progress at all. But you are. Every day you survive is progress. Every day you choose differently is progress. Every day you prioritize your peace over their presence is progress. Right now you can't see it. Right now you're so deep in the pain that you can't imagine a version of yourself that's not defined by what happened to you. But there's a future version of you that's looking back at this moment with gratitude. Not gratitude for what they did to you. Not gratitude for the pain, but gratitude for what you became because of it. That future you is stronger, wiser, more discerning, more protective of their energy, more selective about who gets access to their heart, more aware of red flags, more confident in their worth, more unwilling to accept less than they deserve. That future you has boundaries that aren't negotiable, standards that aren't flexible, self-respect that isn't conditional on someone else's validation. That future you looks at people like your ex and sees them instantly for what they are. Not mysterious, not complex, not worth the mental energy. Just another person who wasn't ready for what you offered. Just another lesson learned. Just another person you outgrew. That future you meets someone new and doesn't bring the baggage from this relationship. Doesn't punish them for someone else's sins. Doesn't sabotage something good because they're afraid of being hurt again. They love openly, but wisely. They trust, but verify. They give, but not at the expense of themselves. That future you has a life so full that your ex becomes a story you tell. Sometimes, maybe, if it's relevant. Not the defining trauma of your existence. Not the thing you're still trying to recover from years later. Just a thing that happened once, to a version of you that no longer exists. You become that person by making hard choices now. By choosing to stop ruminating and start doing. By choosing to stop seeking validation from people who devalued you and start validating yourself. By choosing to stop making excuses for people who showed you exactly who they were. By choosing to stop shrinking yourself to make others comfortable. Every time you choose yourself, you become more of who you're meant to be. Every time you honor your worth, you raise your standards. Every time you walk away from what doesn't serve you, you make space for what will. Here's what you need to understand, fundamentally, in your bones. You are not defined by who stayed. You're defined by who you became when they left. You are not defined by their inability to love you. You're defined by your capacity to love yourself. You are not defined by the relationship that ended. You're defined by what you build next. From this moment forward, you operate differently. You don't chase, you attract. And what doesn't naturally gravitate toward your energy isn't meant for you. You don't convince. You present yourself as you are, and the right people recognize your value immediately. Everyone else can keep walking. You don't beg for effort. You observe patterns. And when someone shows you they're not willing to meet you at your level, you believe them and move accordingly. You don't lower your standards to keep people. You raise them to attract better ones. You don't give unlimited chances. You give clear boundaries. And when those boundaries are crossed, there are consequences. Not threats, not drama, just decisive action. You don't tie your worth to whether someone chooses you. You know your worth is inherent, fixed, non-negotiable. Their choice to walk away says everything about them and nothing about you. You don't explain yourself to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. You save your energy for people who actually listen. You don't wait for perfect conditions to start living your life. You start now, messy and imperfect and scared, because waiting for permission is just another form of self-betrayal.